Hi guys, Swiss Bohemian here. As you can see, I got a lot of new manga. This time they are in French. Before I'm going to show you each of the individual covers, let me tell you that I got these manga by Amazon and well, I had a little bit of trouble with the boxes. One box looked like this, with this huge hole inside, and it had absolutely no wrapping inside. The second box looked like this, and it had only this kind of paper as a wrapping inside. The result is that two of my obis were destroyed, so these kind of obi on paper, and three mangas were slightly bent, but I managed to unbend them again by putting weight on them. They are down below. So yeah, I'm not quite happy how Amazon France handled things. In the future I'm going to just buy smaller amount of manga, maybe 5 or 4 or 5 by Amazon each time, and not like a huge haul, because yeah, I don't want to have the same situation again. Anyway, let's dive into the manga I got. The first two manga I got are volumes 2 and 3 of Spy X Family. It's a lot of fun. It's the story about a spy who needs to get some new information about a foreign country, and for that he needs to infiltrate the school. And to infiltrate the school he needs a child, so he adopts this young child, and then he needs a fake wife, which is her. What he doesn't know is that she is actually a killer, and his fake daughter is an esper. She can read the minds of other people, so she knows that her fake dad is actually a spy and her fake mom is a killer, and she really enjoys that. It's really fun. I highly recommend this one. It's out in English and also out in German. Then I got the volumes 5, 6 and 7 of Candy and Cigarettes, and this is an action manga for adults. It reminds me a little bit of Leon the Professional with Jean Reno. Imagine this movie, but with Matilda, who actually really kills people. So it's a kind of film noir genre. Yeah, it's okay. I wouldn't really recommend that, but it's at least the drawings are really nice. The drawings are nice, they are okay, okay-ish, I guess. You can buy this manga also in English if I'm not mistaken, and you can also buy it in German, but I think only the first 3 volumes are out in German for now. Then I got 5 volumes of A Silent Voice. I really like this manga. I started reading it as a scanlation some years ago, and then I saw the movie, which is a masterpiece in my opinion. And yeah, it's a great redemption story. I love it. So volumes 3 to 7, 4, 5, 6 and 7. There's an 8th and final volume, but it was out of stock. Volume 5 of Boys Love Metamorphose, and this is a josei manga, a manga for adult women. It's the story about an elderly woman, her on the cover here. She's in her 70s, and one day she discovers in a library boys love manga, which are usually meant for young women. And she really starts to like these stories, and she also gets to know this young woman who has a part-time job in the library, and she's also a big fan of boys love. So they bond over boys love comics. It's really great. The volumes 2 and 3 of Les Lieux du Sang. The Japanese title is Chi no Wadachi. It's a manga by the author Shuzo Oshimi. So this is a psychological thriller about a boy who is really dependent from his mom. And then one day a tragedy happens, which she's at the core of this tragedy. And this boy cannot really understand what's happening. And he's in a conflict if he should be loyal to his mom or not. And drawings are absolutely amazing. Shuzo Oshimi has, I think, a really great art style, a really strong art style. It's highly psychological. I'm loving this one. Can really recommend it. It's also out in English, pretty sure. I think Now several of his manga by Shuzo Oshimi are out in English. I highly recommend this one. Then I have volumes 2 and 3 of a manga called Incandescence. This is also a josei manga, so a manga for adult women. If I remember well, it's a kind of romance manga about this woman here. I think she's in her early 20s and she falls in love with a guy in his mid 40s, early 50s. Sounds like cliche, but I think it's well drawn and also well written. Then Mauvaise Herbe, volume 3 by Keigo Shinzo. And this is a story about a runaway girl, and she's on the street and she's picked up by an older guy. I'm not quite sure. I think an older man, and he is actually a police officer who had once a daughter passed away, and think the daughter really resembles her, something like that. Dans l'ombre de Crimi, which seems to be a kind of spin-off manga about this famous 1980s anime, magical girl anime series from Studio Pierrot called Creamy Mangi. So I'm not quite sure if maybe this girl here is the main protagonist and she's always in the shadow of Creamy, something like that, I guess. Yeah, I'm curious about this one. Then the first volume of Blue Period, which I have read a little bit online, some chapters in a scanlation. I like that. It's a story about, I think, a young high school student who really likes to draw, like fine art drawings. And yeah, this is a good one. I think it won a prize recently in Japan. Blue Period by Tsubasa Yamaguchi, and it came out in French on the label Pika Edition. Then volume 1 of A Journey to Heaven, which is a science fiction series. I also have read some chapters of this one. I liked it so far. It's by the guy who drew And Yet the Earth Still Moves, something like that. The content is like a survival story in a post-apocalypse world. It has some kind of really bizarre monsters and situations. The drawings are also okay. There's some nudity sometimes. Yeah, the monsters are really strange. There's some monster designs. I really like this one. A manga called in French De l'autre côté de l'horizon, so on the other side of the horizon. I also have read some chapters of this one online. This is a kind, I'm not sure if it's a seinen manga or like a shoujo manga. It looks like it's a little bit of shoujo manga by the style, but I think it's a seinen manga, so it's a romance about the guy who, if I'm not mistaken, starts to work at the post office on a remote island, and he gets to know this young woman, this girl, I think she's a high schooler. Yeah, and I'm always for romance manga, and especially if they like take place in a serene scenery, in a like remote place of Japan or some other place. I really like that. And also the drawings, I think, are okay. I like these drawings. They're nice and polished. So yeah, looking forward to read this one. I don't know the Japanese title. I think it's out in English, if I'm not mistaken. I've got this volume here. It's called Ayako l'enfant de la nuit, which means Ayako, the girl of the night. And it's based on a famous manga by Osamu Tezuka, the god of manga. And this one is quite new. I think it came out last year in Japan. And I don't know the original Ayako, but I have read this one like yesterday. The drawings are really great. The story is a little bit trash, but yeah. I mean, the drawings are absolutely amazing. They are oozing with the details. And so it's really amazing. The downside of this story is it contains a lot of nudity, like you can tell, like there's like also fan service. Anyway, the drawings are great, but I really want to read the original, so I ordered the original by Osamu Tezuka. It's like a hardcover version, contains all the chapters of Ayako. So it's still wrapped. I'm really curious how this holds up. It's a manga. It's a shonen manga? No, I think it's seinen. Yeah, it's a seinen manga which came out in the 70s. Quite curious about this one, Ayako. A bigger manga I hope you can see that well. It's a bit tricky. It's called L'île entre deux mondes. L'île entre deux mondes. So a story of an island between two worlds. I don't know more about this. Curious about this one. I like the drawings so far. L'île entre deux mondes. Now I've got still one pile. The two first volumes of Yokohama Escale à Yokohama. So this one here, I got all volumes of this manga in Japanese. I started collecting those in the late 90s up to 2006. This is an absolutely wonderful slice of life science fiction manga about a young woman who is, well, she's actually an android who runs a cafe out in the countryside, and she's driving around with her scooter and enjoying like the post-apocalyptic landscape, which is actually Japan but with a higher level of the ocean. The drawings are amazing, really amazing, and it's also kind of sad story because she's an android, so she's not getting older, but the people she knows, they're all getting older, of course, over the course of the time. And the drawings are just, the drawings, my god, they are just perfect. This is really one of my top 5 manga, and I don't say that lightly. I think it's maybe one, if not the best drawn manga I have. The style looks rather simple, but you can really tell that he has a really good sense for like landscapes and wind and for landscapes, for the atmosphere of the landscape, and it's just absolutely amazing. In English it's called Yokohama Shopping Log. It never came out in English officially, but it gathered some kind of recognition among early readers of scanlations because it was one of the first manga which got completely scanlated online, and it's really great. And for some reason it never came out in another language other than Japanese, so there's no English one, there was no French one until now, there's no German one, no Italian one as far as I know, and in total there are, I think, 14 volumes or 15 if I'm not mistaken. Volume 2 of Anonym, I read that one last year. I remember it was okay. Can't really remember about what it was again. I guess some kind of bullying story takes place in school, or somebody was murdered by another student. Shadow's House, volume 3. And this is a kind of like... This is a fantasy manga which takes place like in a huge mansion. And it's about young girls and boys who serve nobility, and the nobility, they are people who are, you can't see their faces, so these are kind of it's a kind of dark fantasy, I guess. And so every kind of servant, they are servants. She's a servant, she's the main character. She has like an upper nobility person which she needs to serve as like a living doll. She needs to imitate actually this girl here. I like the drawings, great drawings. And there's now an anime out, it's called Shadow's House. I recommend this one. L'Appel des Montagnes, The Call of the Mountains. It's a story about students, college students who form like a club for mountaineering. I don't know more about this one, curious to read it. Coma héroïque dans un autre monde. It's a kind of isekai story, I guess. But the guy who woke up after coma, he was like living in his coma isekai life. It's strange, I don't know. Curious about this one. No idea more about this one. Artiste, un chef d'exception. Also curious about this one. Don't know more about this one. It has just 6 volumes for now. Seems to be a story about a young guy who goes to Paris to learn to be a good chef, cuisinier. I guess it's a kind of... what is that? Seems to be a seinen manga, could also be a josei manga, I don't care, it looks interesting. A shoujo manga for girls. 100 Days Until Your Death. It's called 100 jours avant ta mort. Sounds like a really sad story. about, I think it's about the guy who actually can see numbers above this girl, and the number is a kind of countdown. So if it's written 90 over her head, it means in 90 days she's going to die, something like that. I don't know more about this, but I thought this sounds interesting. Hana l'inaccessible by Koji Murata. This seems to be a kind of like workplace romance series, like a romance manga for men. Seems to be like a romance series with a dash of humor in it. I like that. She's supposed to be like, I think, the Ice Queen, but deep down she's like really like that. Something. I don't know. Unsung Cinderella Volumes 1 and 2. It looks like it's a kind of like drama manga taking place in a pharmacy or a hospital. Curious about this one. Looks interesting. The drawings also seem to be okay. Many Reasons, Volume 1 and 2. This seems to be a story about a young girl, a high schooler who killed herself, and this really shocks her whole class. And then it's about what happened, what led to this suicide of this girl. That's all I know. I haven't read anything online, no chapters. I'm curious about this one. Then the last two volumes, Les Carnets de l'Apothicaire, Volume 1 and 2. I read good reviews about this manga. I think in the original it's called Kuzuria no Shigoto, something like that. I think it takes place in ancient China. It's about this young woman. She's a kind of pharmacist, I think, and she helps like the nobility. I don't know more about that. I'm really curious about this one. I really read good reviews about this one, and I think it's out in English. So in total these were 39 manga in French. Do you know some of these manga? Do you like some of these or collect them? Please let me a comment down below. Goodbye!